Ethical considerations in nursing research. Is the research ethical? Well, one of the first things that researchers look at and the IRBs look at is the risk-benefit ratio. What are the potential benefits of the study to the population? And what are the potential risks to the participants? Can somebody get hurt? We need to look at all the human rights that I have distributed to you and that we've worked on. Do the benefits outweigh the risks? If it's a potentially ethical study, the benefits do outweigh the risks, and the researcher will go ahead and complete the research. However, if the risks outweigh the benefits, it's a potentially unethical study, and they should not proceed. After the atrocities that were done in experimenting on human beings during World War II, the Nuremberg Code was developed. It includes several criteria, and they include, number one, the researcher must inform the subjects about the study. The people need to know they're being studied. Number two, the research must be for the good of society. Not just that, hey, you want to know something, but that it's going to benefit and make the world a better place. Number three, research must be based on animal experiments instead of human ones, if possible. The researcher must try to avoid injury to research subjects. Number four, researchers must be qualified to conduct research. It can't just be anybody. It's got to be someone who knows what they're doing. And the last one, subjects or the researcher can stop the study if problems occur. This means the researcher can say, oh, that's it, we need to stop. We have too many problems here. Or subjects can say, I've had it, I'm out of here, and they can drop out. Similarly, in 1978, the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research was founded. And they came up with 3 criteria. In research, we need to respect the people. Research subjects should have the autonomy and self-determination. The second is beneficence. Research subjects should be protected from harm. And the third is justice. Research subjects should receive fair treatment. Before we talk about the specific human rights, let's talk about informed consent. I've given you some information on informed consent in some of your handouts, but let's talk about who cannot give consent. We're talking about vulnerable populations here. There are people who cannot give consent or who can only give it with extra precautions. We have to be able to justify what we're doing and take extra precautions if we're going to work with these people. Vulnerable populations is who we're talking about, and those are people with diminished autonomy. Those with emotional, intellectual, and or physical challenges. Some of the elderly and sick fall into this population, especially if they're terminally ill. The unborn. Children under 18 years of age, unless they are emancipated minors or were working in some case of child abuse, but usually we're talking about informed consent in terms of providing care then. We're not talking about research. Captive people are vulnerable populations. Those are prisoners, and it's also students are considered captive audience. And we need to use special precautions and be able to justify why it is we're using this population to study. Human rights in research. The first one is the right to self-determination, and it's based on respect. People are autonomous and can make their own decisions. We violate this right when we use coercion, Subjects are afraid they'll be mistreated or undertreated if they refuse to be in this study. That's one of the big reasons they participate, because they were coerced into it. And deception is the other big violation here. Subjects are misinformed or uninformed about the research. The right to privacy and dignity. Again, this one is based on respect. Privacy. The individual has the right to decide what they want to tell you and what they don't want to tell you. We violate this when we include a lot of invasive questions that might result in loss of employment, disruption of the family, loss of dignity, loss of friends, that kind of thing. So study and researchers have to be very careful. What am I asking? Why am I asking this? Am I just being nosy? Or is there a real reason to ask this question? The other way to violate this right is through hidden microphones and video recorders. The right to an anonymity and confidentiality. Anonymity. No one, even the researcher, knows who gave what information. Sometimes we're dealing this in a double-blind kind of situation. Sometimes it's fill out this form, we stick it in a packet, I never look at it until I collect all the information, and then I analyze it, and I don't know who collected it or who provided the information. Confidentiality has to do with redisclosure. Nobody can identify the study participants when the information is publicly shared. And no one can link them to their information. So when the publication comes out, the research publication comes out, nobody can say, ooh, I know who this is. This is Mr. Jones down the street who just gave this information. You know, that would be a breach of confidentiality. Now, we violate this when researchers share data with people who are not part of the research team. Again, this is before the data is actually published. They say, hey, come on, let's look at these forms we got together. And they have somebody participate who in data analysis or something and they're not part of the research team. Another way to violate this is individual participants can be identified by the data as reported in the publication. The right to fair treatment is based on justice. People should be treated fairly. They should receive the care they require, whether they participate in the study or not. This can be violated by putting participants in groups based on factors such as race, gender, culture, etc., such as putting all the women in the experimental group and all the men in the control group. Well, that means all the women are receiving this new treatment that might be helpful, and the men aren't getting any of this benefit. That is a breach of this right to fair treatment. The other one is the researcher not keeping to the agreed upon arrangements and procedures. Hey, I agreed to meet with you an hour once a week. What do you mean you want 2 hours? That's not what I agreed to. So it's breach, it's being late, it's keeping people late, it's changing the procedures without getting consent from the people who are in the study. The right to protection from discomfort and harm is based on beneficence, which is the promotion of good. It is doing good. And the opposite is we must do no harm. And we're looking at physical, psychological, social, economic harm, any of them. We're looking at temporary harm. Obviously, we're looking at permanent harm, but it includes temporary harm as well. And we can violate this by withholding needed treatment or creating emotional distress. We're working with people and asking them such intrusive questions. You know, maybe this is a population of women who have been abused, and we're asking them questions that is essentially forcing them to relive the experience, and we're causing emotional harm. That would be a breach of their human rights.